Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As mentioned, my name's Pierre Wuu. Glad to be back after a couple-year layoff. We have a very distinguished panel that I want to introduce, and then we have a lot of important updates and high-level things to talk about in terms of the general state of the Asian online gambling space. So I'm sure there's a lot of things you want to know. We'll also be available afterwards if you have specific questions that you want to ask our experts. So without dragging too much more about myself, I want to just go ahead and hand it to my right and go to my right down, and everyone will just quickly introduce themselves.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jaydeep. I'm working as a consultant, mainly focusing on the Indian market. And very recently, just been a week ago, I've been appointed in the Gaming Commission in India, one of the first of its kind. And so I'm going to talk more about the Indian market. So if anybody has any specific questions, please feel free to ask.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bhavesh Parthi. I'm the Managing Director of 48 Pacific. We deal in B2B and B2C with expertise in Southeast Asian markets. So yeah, just like Jaydeep, if you have any questions later, you're always free to ask about Southeast Asian markets. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Guan. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Pinnacle. Our bread and butter has been sports betting. We've been doing sports betting from year 1998. We are also one of the first to offer esports betting. From year 2010, we've been pricing up esports. And we've primarily been doing B2C in the past, but in recent years, we've also branched out into B2B.
Hi, my name's Frank Herold. I'm Director of Business Development of EMIRAT. I joined the company about 5 years ago. Before that, I had an experience of 20 years in the media industry. EMIRAT is an insurance company that works globally and has its headquarters in Munich in Germany. What we're doing is insurance for jackpots, for example, for lottery jackpots, for gamings, but also for marketing promotions. So if there is a winner, we do the insurance for it and do the payout then.
Great. So as you can see, we have quite a broad range of scope, geographically and expertise-wise. So I think we'll get a lot of insight today. Going right into it, one of the things we want to talk about that I wanted to pitch out there is based on the pandemic, during and post, what are some of the customer preferences and product innovation that you have seen as a result, and how is that sticking going forward, whether that be virtuals or just the way people are gambling online coming out of the pandemic. Anybody want to jump into that? Jane?
I guess, so for us, with a focus in sports betting, we definitely felt the impact when the pandemic started, especially there were 2 months where there was absolutely no traditional sports and there was no certainty as to when everything's going to come back. For us at the time, the saving grace was definitely esports. So for us, we saw the esports volume soaring up by 40% over the pandemic. And obviously, I think that diversification is absolutely the key. I think we gave a lot of push on casino over that time, brought in new virtuals, so yeah.
And what about once sports came back? Did it come right back down, or was it at a sustaining higher level in terms of once the real events came back?
Yeah, I think we definitely saw, there's that, there's the overspending after a period of, nothing for people to consume on. And we also had the Euro in the same year, and Euro, I think, worked out great for us. That's been one of the best year for us in terms when there's a major event. So I'm sure a lot of other sports betting operators felt the same.
Jaydeep, I know we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think obviously we all experienced a very harsh lockdown, and what happened, and there was no live sports for many months. And India as a country, it's very much cricket focused when it comes to sports betting. So what happened was that is players came out with their own way of getting involved. So there are games, traditional games like, I'm not sure how many of you heard of this, called Ludo, which became an instant hit during that time. And that resulted in like hundreds and hundreds of millions of downloads. and people started creating private networks and place bets among each other. And that's still going on, not to that extent, obviously, as during the pandemic days, but still there's a large number of people who had adapted to that. Then there are multiplayer games which people are playing in their home, very similar to poker, but much faster. And those kind of games picked up quite prominently during this pandemic time. Casino as a product, which is not that, I mean, it's getting popular, but not that popular, but during this pandemic days, even live casino really picked up in the Indian market. So a lot of offshore companies which were focusing in the Indian market with their sports products started pushing more casino content out there, and they saw a definitely big impact on that.
I know I come from the poker background. For anybody who's in poker, during the beginning of that, there was just a massive surge of all the network poker companies. Everybody was going back to online poker. They couldn't get, obviously, in person in poker rooms, go to tournaments, and so that really fit in very well for the online poker guys.
I could see two things that were really going big after the pandemic. The one thing is a huge increase of instant games. So that's what we did not have in that amount before COVID. Of course, we did have that, but the change, the speed that people and players want to get results had an amazing increase. So looking, for example, into the lottery market before the pandemic, so we're in the lottery business since 12 years now, and also online as offline. But before that, we were really strong on the weekly draws, bi-weekly draws, on the weekend draws, like just mirroring offline world into the online world. But after that, after the pandemic, we're really into speed. So what does it mean? People want to play, want the results, want the payout at once, and that's a thing that also increases if you look into the bigger picture with the blockchain games, what we hear about in the afternoon as well. So that instant games, the demand is a very, very big one. And the second thing I would like to add is looking into the football, because you mentioned the championship, is that especially the top 5 leagues in Europe are really going globally. So the Bayern Munich is training in the US, others are in China. So it's not like it was years before. So the demand of online gamings on bettings for football is also increasing, not only in the European regions where the leagues are really present, but also very strong in the African market, for example, in West Africa, in East Africa, in South Africa. I have in the last 6 months, I had similar demands for games from 10 different countries only on that continent, which is really amazing because of the more international presence. So these two things I would like to focus on.
Yep.
In terms of Southeast Asian, before COVID, sports was really, really great. During COVID, there were no sports. Casino products did pick up in South Asian markets, especially in Thailand and Malaysia, Indonesia as well. But casino products are always boring. I mean, every competitor, every brand has more or less the same stuff. So one of the marketing campaigns that we ran was that we were pushing arcade games, simple arcade games, quick games like rock, paper, scissors games and all that. And we were pushing it on social media, and it did actually quite well because people wanted something new. So during the COVID, casino products improved, arcade games improved. I think I spoke to some of my friends in other brands. Some of them saw up to 300% increase during COVID. And now that things are starting to open, cricket is back, football is back. There has been a drop in arcade games, but the slots and casinos, especially games like Teen Party, everything, is still maintaining the numbers, which is something we weren't exactly expecting.
Very good. I wanted to touch on the elephant in the room in a sense that everybody knows the crown jewel of Asia was China. And I'd say over the last, we want to talk a little bit about what's going on in China and where else are people pivoting to make up for that. Because the reality is, over the last couple years or so, or even since the pandemic, China's lost a lot of their market in terms of the operators. Let's look at the situation. Situation pre-pandemic, my best estimate, there are a couple 100,000 POGO workers from mainland China or associated with the Chinese market alone, just in this city that you're in. Now, many over time had gone back because they had to go back. They didn't know. It was quite aggressive in terms of the lockdown here. And it was thriving, it was booming. And what's happened in China? Well, they've done a lot of various crackdowns. First and foremost would be the payments. If the lifeline of your business obviously is the payments if you're in online. So if the government or your market has no way to deposit, you're going to be suffering. And my best guess would be that the China market over the last couple of years, at the pre-pandemic at its height till now, could easily be 60 to 70% down when it comes to many operators that were based here across the board, casino, sports, anything online, basically. And that, on top of that, that goes along with the fact that the junkets and Sun City, who used to dominate the land-based casinos here and throughout Asia with junket rooms, also ran a online business, and their boss and the number 2 boss in Macau are now, I guess, under house arrest or are under arrest. And so there's no play, right? Not a lot of play. Macau's coming out of another lockdown. So a lot of things going on. So with that, everybody wants to kind of pivot. And on top of that, I know a lot of POGO workers where the government of China was also calling their home saying, hey, we have records that show that your son or daughter has been over here. What are they doing? So they have really, in the past, the government has usually come around Chinese New Year or the October meetings and then really put a pressure on things. And then 1 or 2 months later, things would ease and everything was back. This has been going on for a good 2+ years. So with that, I wanted to go to my panel here and say, what are we seeing in terms of the growth and the pivots with many of these big companies when they look at the rest of Asia, Southeast Asia, India? We know India's been hot, et cetera. Thoughts there on that and what you've seen based on these big companies that had a China focus, and now everybody's really looking elsewhere right now to try to make this up.
I personally saw, and a few of my other friends in other brands as well, we saw India come up really, really high, and also Thailand as well, and Vietnam. There were lockdowns in Thailand, so that's where things really pushed, really increased. And in Malaysia as well, because COVID was a bad thing. It was really, really bad. People died, people got sick. But for the online gambling, in terms of payment providers, more games catered to the Asian market really improved. Prior to COVID, you maybe had 10 companies that would provide payment solutions for the Asian market. During COVID, it increased maybe 15, and now there are like 20, 30 payment providers. So this is good for B2C brands because they can pick and choose who has the lower fees, who has quicker integration. And if it's good for the B2C, it'll be good for the players. They can deposit faster, they can withdraw faster. And during COVID, a lot of brands learned a lot about each different market. Because Southeast Asia, Malaysia and Thailand, they're right beside each other, yes. But there are so many things that are totally different in terms of culture, in terms of what actually works in the respective markets, and payment providers, and also the way you market to those players in those markets. I mean, like in Thailand, you can only use like messaging apps, whereas in Malaysia, you can use WeChat. So it took a lot of brands, a lot of trial and error. I have friends, especially some of the European brands who tried to tap the Asian market. They burnt a lot of money because they were using like PPC, they were using like Facebook, and they were using all types of different marketing tools, marketing channels that would not work in these markets. And so, yeah.
Okay. Jane?
Yeah, I think just to echo what you said there, I think we see that from our B2B numbers as well. The clients who were focusing in China was definitely the number for the Chinese market has been suffering, and we've seen a lot of talks about branching to India, Southeast Asia. But again, I think what you said there was right. Doing the localization right is absolutely the key. I mean, everyone's looking at India, but for example, the fixed odds betting wasn't really a thing a few years ago, and now we see a few brands like Betway, for example, going in there, and they are getting some market share. So yeah, I think there's definitely opportunities in these markets, and people are investing to these markets, but doing it right and get the right understanding of the market is the key.
And India definitely, like to repeat everybody, was a very hot buzzword over the last year plus. Having said that, why don't we dive a little deeper into India, and you can talk about that surge that's happened in the last 12 to 18 months and what's going on right now in India.
So I think traditionally what Jane said is correct. India has been an exchange market, and that's been how it was from the days of Betfair. For many, many years, majority of the sports betting was dominated by exchanges. I think it kind of got changed when Bet365 and Betway started entering in the market, and that was good 5-6 years ago. And now you do have a very large number of player base which kind of more interested in fixed odds betting, and that's why they are more keen to play on sports books. So there is a significant increase in that kind of player base, let's say. And one of the things that have fueled this growth in last, I would say, 8-10 years is the popularity of IPL. I'm not sure how many of you know this. It's a tournament like on cricket, very fast. It runs for almost 2 months, and it sees huge amount of betting on every match. And it's probably it is the most popular cricket tournament in the world right now. And so these kind of things that has helped the sports book or the sports betting side of it, that have seen an increased growth in last few years, particularly from the COVID time also. But the casino side is also picking up. So again, India is 90-95% live dealer. I think how probably China was 10 years ago. Very much live dealer focused markets. Evolution does incredibly well. I think if you need to be a successful brand in India, you need to have games like Evolution. So the casino brands, which are primarily online casino brands, they have picked up a lot in last 2-3 years, particularly during the COVID time. So there's again, I think we're talking about payments. Payments been a big challenge till 4-5 years ago. Now, like you said, you have 20, probably you have 50 payment providers in India now. Many of them opening and shutting down every other month. So you need to be careful who you work with. That's another problem. But I think, yeah, as a market, it's really picking up. So that's on the offshore side of it. And on the regulation side of it, again, not much movement. There are only 2 states which allows land-based casinos. And I am basically involved in the 3rd state, which has recently started allowing land-based casinos. So the first casinos there will be opening up in next month. So again, in online space, a lot of activities happening to curb, let's say, the offshore gaming. Like in China, government is waking up. There's a lot of discussions happening in parliament. But so far, nothing has happened in reality. Things moves very slow. I think overall, that's where we are.
How about on the sports side? How much of it is just pure cricket betting versus football or any other big sport?
So
I mean, we're talking...
Yeah, 90% I would say cricket betting, but also you have a lot of players who likes to bet fast. So games like tennis, badminton, where you can bet on every ball or every hit, that kind of games are much more popular than football. But football, again, has its own followings. There's a thing called ISL, which is Indian Soccer League. That's also picking up very fast. It's been, I think, 7-8 years they are running. So they are also have a very decent fan following. So it's picking up. I think across the board it's picking up, but cricket is definitely number 1 by far.
Okay. And then also just the background, when I was at PokerStars, we deemed poker as a game of skill that was legally set up throughout. And I know Rummy is very big. What's going on there lately? Anything big there with poker, games of skill, Rummy?
So again, this is a big challenge for India-based gaming companies, because they are legal. They are obviously, some of them are doing incredible numbers. Fantasy sports, Dream 11 is one of the biggest brands. Rummy, there are few companies which are doing incredibly well. They make almost $1 million every day in rake. So that kind of shows how big these guys are. But again, there is an effort in many of the states where skill gaming is popular, and the local governments are trying to curb that, which is kind of pushing many of the players into offshore or gray markets where they lose the protection, or they lose the kind of ability to complain to anybody even if something goes wrong. So that in a way is a step back. But yeah, in a general sense, the skill gaming industry in India is booming. There are a few companies which are doing incredibly well. The entry barrier is very big now because they're spending so much money in marketing and all. For a new company, it's very difficult to keep track of that. But overall, it's definitely booming.
Yeah, I totally agree that in the last 2-3 years, the amount of suppliers really increased. So now we have a choice of which payment provider we select, which game developer, what tools do we use to make our business successful. But what is really coming to present in the last years is that the existing strong brands have the opportunity, the possibility even to grow quickly after the pandemic because they are really well known. So we can not only, as our experience of the last years, if we look only on how to do online marketing, for example, to build up a brand from scratch, that's not enough for new operators that went into the market. So the strong ones that have also offline casinos, offline brands for the last years, they are really quick on recovering after COVID, also in the online game. The new operators that start into the market with whatever games they have, if it is lottery, sports betting, gaming, they really have a tough race now because they don't have a strong brand. And I always say that you need to build up a credibility, a strong brand where people can trust on. Don't underestimate that. If you are not in the last years, which companies were growing? The well-known. We're now talking about the sports. We're talking about football, cricket, because that's from the demand side. But coming from the supply side, which brands should we focus on? These are the ones that have a strong credibility, a strong brand, a strong trust in.
Now, many of you, I've met a lot of people. I know some are here for the first time, which is great. And you're also considering, well, we want to come out in Asia. We don't know what the market looks like, and especially we don't know where should we be located. So I want to touch very just quickly about the topic, the landscape. Obviously, we're in Manila. I would say pre-pandemic, this was like pretty much the hub of online gaming. Many things had changed. With all due respect to our PAGCOR people that were in the house today, I think they've improved the situation. But prior, there was a tax on, I think it was a 5% tax on turnover as opposed to GGR. And a lot of people, you heard the news potentially that many people moved to Dubai and things were uncertain. But now we have a new president here, and somebody will be appointed head of PAGCOR, which we're very optimistic about. And they did walk that back and turn it to GGR, right? Because if you're running at 1.22% margins on Baccarat and you're paying 5% on turnover, you're losing money, right? So why would you do business here and run a live dealer Baccarat shop? But now that's changed. But want to talk about, obviously, like I mentioned, there are a couple 100,000 people here that were employed, and it was thriving. And now it's coming back, and things are going well, but we've heard of Dubai, we've heard of Thailand, we've heard of Cambodia, and Sihukville, and Vietnam. I even heard of many Chinese operators moving out to Georgia and Eastern Europe and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about that, what your thoughts are, what you're seeing. Personally, I'm seeing people now welcome to come back, maybe waiting to see who the new PAGCOR chair is and how things settle down. And but general thoughts and maybe why you like one country over another and what you're seeing.
I personally am seeing Philippines is coming back. But a lot of people, they just want to look and see how things goes first before they start. Companies start spending a lot of money relocating the staff, everything. I personally think Dubai is going to die off in a few years. People will start moving out of Dubai, maybe back to Philippines or into Asian markets, because cultural. A lot of people, when you relocate staff, you need to think on behalf of your team, your staff. Not only in terms of is the weather nice, but what kind of food do they like? Do they like the types of accommodation there's also a lot of Asian brands are moving to Dubai, but they're not taking into consideration the staff's favorite food, because Dubai is very meat-based. A lot of China staff is very they eat lots of vegetables. I have friends who have been to Dubai and Doha, and they say, oh, buying vegetables is like extremely difficult. You can't get anything fresh. You can buy a lot of meat, yes. So I personally think after a few years, companies are going to see a lot of staff turnover from Dubai. They'll say that they can't fit in everything. And that's when they are going to start looking into moving back into Southeast Asia. I've already heard that there are a few brands working under the radar in Malaysia, and the brands say the staffs are very happy because Malaysia has, culturally, food-wise, it's very good. Cost of living has skyrocketed recently, but that's a whole different story. And Cambodia as well. But I really hope the Philippines will come back up, because prior to COVID, it was so nice when I came here. I could meet friends and make new contacts from all the different brands, and I think that is really good. I just really hope Philippines will come back up, and I wish Philippines the best of luck.
Jane?
Yeah, I think the regulation and the tax situation was definitely one of the two deciding factors for people to decide when they, make their choices, right? So from that context, I think Philippines definitely has this advantage out of the jurisdictions that we've been talking about. And I think another factor people think about is what type of business and, what subdivisions you are looking to set up. It's very different if you are looking to set up a call center versus if you are looking to set up a trading department or, most sensitive ones, the payment areas. That's where you absolutely need some protection from from a licensing perspective.
That's a very good point. I know a lot of companies that are headquartered here or in another area, but a lot of their back office for the China market is sitting in Taiwan, Taichung, Taipei, Neihu, but they're not touching payments and they're not doing marketing, and those companies are not taking Taiwan bets. So, but they speak the language. Affordable wages in terms of, good quality of life. And that's why a lot of people you saw here at the conference are probably coming from Taiwan. So Taiwan is definitely taking a lot of that back office pressure.
Yeah, one of the things I'll add is I think the location will also depend on the market that you are trying to target. I think for a lot of companies which are primarily targeting the South Asian markets, they are based in Dubai. And I think traditionally over the years, like for last 10, 15 years, they've been based in Dubai. And many of them never even leave Dubai or come to India anymore or any other South Asian countries. The staff is there. Again, I think we talked about food habits. I think they are quite comfortable in Dubai. And I think also another very big thing is moving of funds or money. I think Dubai works very well in that aspect. So I think depending on which countries you're targeting, so for South Asian markets, at least I can say Dubai is a very good option as of now.
Yep.
So we see a strong development of the also gaming and lottery companies in the GCC countries. So we have in the last, I would say 12 months, we started 2 lotteries in Dubai. We started 2 months ago lottery in Oman, going into other GCC countries as well. So that is still an increasing market. Why? Because decisions are quick. So if you have a good business plan context. Like, you don't have to wait to get the approvals for everything for a month and for years, and that is a really important stuff. If an operator want to do business and roll it out into different countries, you need to have a quick decision, and you need reliability on the decisions also from the tax perspective. So looking into also remaining to African markets. I was 2 weeks ago. I was in West Africa, and they say, okay, do we have to pay 30% taxes or zero? So it's not about 2% up or down. It's about a crucial decision. So if you don't have that stability, why should you invest into a country, into a big business plan? You need to have a clear, proper plan where you can say, okay, for the next 5 to 10 years, I am quite secure on where my business plan can go into which direction. So that's also the hope people have here in the Philippines. If you're looking into the big opportunity, the big market, it's a huge opportunity. So that's what the expectations from the operator side would be.
It's obvious for newcomers coming from Europe, exploring Asia, there's a big gray market out here. Let's talk a little bit about what the regulation looks like in the near to long-term future. I think we've heard different speakers talk about the PIGO license, PIGO, which is the internal domestic Philippine regulated market. You see a lot of the IRs, Solaire, Okada, City of Dreams, Genting and Resorts World have their own PIGO licensed online play where you can go in, you can deposit physically, go home, play, collect, get paid out on site. That you have to give it to the Philippines for being one of the first and foremost on that. I think we heard about a couple things moving in different states within India. There had been rumblings about Cambodia in the past, and then all of a sudden, a few years back, I think China said something like, we don't like that, and they said, okay, we don't like that either. We're not gonna, but so it's been really gray, but let's talk about what this is gonna look like in a few years, because I think rest of the world, US, North America, Europe is pretty way farther along on that side, and we've lived on the gray world here on Asia. But any thoughts on what we see coming up? I mean, I know on the land-based side we talked about Japan and the IRs are coming, and I think each one of there's many large land-based casinos, and when they go, it's the natural progression to go online. But any insights on that and what you see in Asia?
Well, in Asia, COVID really opened the eyes of many governments because they saw a lot of lost revenue and way to increase their coffers. But there has been talk in Malaysia to legalize it, in Thailand as well, which I think is something that they should do because Asia is a gray market. If you don't regulate it, other people are going to take advantage of it and the governments are going to lose out. And this is something I think the government should really rethink. They shouldn't have, they should keep up with the times. They can't just continue closing one eye while the other brands are raking in millions and the government is not getting anything in return, and you have gambling addiction, you have AML, you have all of these issues. So the governments should move faster to regulate it, have a proper framework in place, and they can start reaping the benefits. I mean, Philippines was one of the first to do it. They allowed operations to set up here, the amount of staff relocating here. I mean, it brought a lot of money and a lot of good things to the economy, to the country. And Malaysia being a Muslim country, they've always had a lot of difficulties moving forward in this path. So I'm really hoping that the Malaysian government will open their eyes to today's world and adjust accordingly, because there is so much that they can benefit from. Thailand as well, and yeah.
Thoughts over there? I know in China there was always talk about Hainan Island. They had run poker tournaments that I followed and kept track with. But I think they're in a tussle with Macau, because if they open up land-based first, obviously, before they would do full-on online, although there is an online presence within the country that's regulated. It's not as big as all the other people that are offshore. But I don't see that happening anytime soon, especially with the crackdown that's happening and the focus that they have on the government getting extended, or at least the leadership.
Yeah, so I think, again, in India also, I think it's a very similar kind of development. Governments are realizing that they are losing out revenues. I think the focus is obviously in the beginning is on the land-based casinos. I think right now they're trying to come up, some states are exploring on how they can create more jobs and revenue with land-based casinos. And that's where we are right now. And again, I think there's a lot of discussions going around on taxation, on how tax will be collected on the revenues that generated from casinos, land-based casinos, as well as online gaming industry, which is the legal side of it, the skill gaming industry. So there's still a lot of things which are not clear. And I think, in fact, there is a group of ministers meeting happening almost every 2 weeks, and they're still debating on how the taxation will be done, where that taxation will be applied to. I think many are not very clear on that. So I think till the time those things get a little more clearer, I think we're definitely going to see a lot of growth there.
Yeah, let's pivot. Let's talk a little bit about the payments. We know that China suffered a lot, and other countries, on payments in general. How has crypto filled in the gap on the payment side, and then also on the technology side in terms of just crypto gaming? Anybody have insight on that? I mean, I do know personally that a lot of China operators have tried to pivot, and I'd say USDT is an extremely popular crypto currency that's used just because it's relatively holding its value, and the dollar's been pretty strong, as everyone knows. I think a few years back it was as low as like 45 to 1 peso. Now it's like 56, close to 57. So the US dollar's maintained a pretty strong, but at the same time, I do know these China-focused operators, it's not like, oh, crypto's filled in the gap. There's been a lot of learning curve and people just having headache converting onto crypto and getting onto crypto and going to a third-party exchange and so forth. So it's helped. It may be a longer-term growth solution, but does anybody on our panel have thoughts on that, or on the other crypto technology side when it comes to gaming?
I think if I maybe split this on B2B and B2C side, I think looking at, I think first of all, for any gaming operators, payment expenses is always one of the biggest business costs. So for sure, I think crypto helped a lot in that sense. And talking from a B2B perspective, we definitely see a lot of clients switching onto crypto, USDT in particular. On B2C side, though, I think it is a bit of a challenge to expect the B2C customers to switch all to crypto. So that's where, as an operator, we still need to actively reach out and look for more solutions in the local currencies, fiat currencies.
Yeah, B2B side, yes, it is really helped with using crypto. B2C, it takes time because it comes down to your bottom line. In order to encourage your players to switch to crypto, you need to educate them, you need to teach them, you need to have more customer service to answer questions. So this involves cost. For every 1 minute that a player is not depositing, you're actually losing money. So yeah, it's going to take a long time to actually push players to convert to B2C, especially, to convert to crypto, especially now that there's so many payment solution providers out there. They can offer you bank transfer, UPI, IMPS, all the different e-wallets. So before the payment suppliers came, before the abundance of payment suppliers, crypto was like the next best choice. We did invest quite a bit in educating players. We did see a small pickup, but then during COVID, more payment providers came about and offering Asian solutions, so we decided to just drop it because it costs money to educate players to switch to crypto.
And the row does not and when the players pay their amount and pay their pocket into crypto. So the expectation is also that the whole games and everything is then in blockchain and in crypto, they paid out, and then the question is, what are the rates? How can I get it back? How quickly can I get all my winnings, all my stuff? So it's not only bringing the players into the game, it's also playing the whole chain of the game into that system, and that's sometimes not easy because you have so many people to talk and so many companies to organize at the same point. Also, concerning from the speed of payment, expectation is not only having instant games now, expectation is also that if there is a win of 10 million, I want the 10 million in that second. And I won. So this is a total different story we're talking about. If you win now in the U.S. lottery 250 million, you will not have a problem if you wait 2 or 3 weeks for the winning, because you say, okay, then I buy my helicopter in 3 weeks, no problem. But if you play instant games, you wanted it now, and then the problems not getting more easy, because you always have to check that there is no fraud, that everything is on time, that everything was okay. So it's not only educating the players, it's also the whole system.
Yep. So we've covered a bit. I know we're towards the end. We want to save some time for any question, or like I said, we'll be available afterward. But I think today we wanted to give an overview about what are some of the post-pandemic trends in this area. Where are people locating? What are they thinking about from a regulatory standpoint? We talked a little bit about the slots, the RNG, the live dealer, which is a massive market, and then obviously the upcoming World Cup, which I know everybody's keen on, and Asia's traditionally, a huge bump during that period. So it's later this year with a November, December timeframe. But I want to thank everybody on the panel here for their time. Everyone, you see the faces, you know their backgrounds. Please get around, network, mix and mingle. We want to thank ASEAN, the conference itself, for bringing everyone together out of the pandemic. And I encourage everyone to get out there and network and pass out business cards, because this is what it's all about. And with that, we'll open up to any questions that we have. Frank.
Hi guys. So one question, obviously you mentioned crypto, which is great. We'll talk about it more later. But have you seen any trends in terms of some of the other, let's call them buzzwords, and that's of course NFTs, Metaverse, and any of the other new sort of trends and technologies we're coming up? Is this on your radar as far as our industry is concerned in Asia?
I think for us, it's definitely interesting to keep an eye on that. It's not 100% clear as yet. I think a lot of people are still figuring out how that's going to impact the gaming world. From our perspective, we potentially can see one of the biggest impact is probably on esports, where the user experience will switch to the metaverse. But in terms of the gaming experience, we haven't quite seen exactly which path that's going to change as yet.
Yeah, one thing I can add is we're seeing a lot of companies which are traditionally, let's say, fantasy sports kind of companies, and we're seeing they're investing a lot in NFT and Metaverse. So maybe in coming years we'll see some big developments coming from there, but right now they're definitely investing, and we're seeing very good options there.
Thank you so much, and thank the panel for your time.
And thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.